Rolex watch company. Many people might know Rolex watches or have seen somebody wearing a Rolex watch, or they have seen a Rolex watch on the newspaper or in the TV, or maybe someday in the future will want to wear a Rolex watch. So today I'll be telling you the story of Rolex watch and how it began and how it was able to become this big company which we know today, and how its fortunes and also some of the things which it has done into the modern history, which has revolutionized the watch industry and also has helped a lot of people. And you see, these modern watches of today, they were all first engineered by Rolex. This is one of the things which not so many people know. And also some watches which we see today which are waterproof, this was done first by the Rolex watch. So the Rolex watch has also, not only is it a luxury brand, but it has also helped a lot of people and also the watch industry into making the modern watches which we see today. And that's why Rolex watch is very expensive, and that's why it is deemed to be the type of brand which it is today. So I'll be telling you how the journey of the Rolex watch was, although it wasn't so smooth, it had some ups and downs, but I'll be telling you on the also on the founder of the Rolex watch, on how he was able to found it and how his life later on, what happened later on in his life, where he died around in the year of 1960 over there, where the company was already big and also it was already known, famous by everybody. So the owner of Rolex company is called Hans Wilsford, and Hans Wilsford was born in Germany. So Rolex company is a Germany company. That's what not so many people know. It's a Germany company, and also the founder was a German. He was born in Germany in the year of 1881. He was born in a not so rich family and not so poor family. The parents had inherited some particular type of work where they were working by it was ironworks. They used to sell ironworks, and this was inherited by them from their grandfather. And after inheriting this made their life to be a fair life, and also it wasn't so poor, and also it wasn't so they were just in the middle class. They usually used to afford what they needed, and also they didn't have any problem like sleeping hungry. So later on in the years is when now the parents of Hans Wilsford passed away, and Hans Wilsford was a child of he was a second born of three children. So later on, his parents succumbed to death, natural death. So he remained as an orphan. And at that age, what the uncles did, they took all the property and also the businesses of the parents and sold them. And after selling them, they took some of the money and educated these children and put them into boarding school. This annoyed so much Hans Wilsford, but he couldn't do anything. He just went into that boarding school and learned. And one of the subjects which he used to be good at was mathematics and also languages. These subjects he usually said that these are the subjects which will make him later on in life to be able to succeed, especially languages. So he paid a lot of attention in these languages. So when he was in that boarding school, there was a friend of his which was living in Switzerland. He usually told Hans Wilsford a lot of stories of Switzerland and how Switzerland are able to make nice watches. And there was a particular city in Switzerland which he usually told Hans Wilsford specifically that that city is where they usually make they make pocket watches, and also they make watches where people like these watches. So Hans Wilsford was able to be intrigued by this particular place in Switzerland. He grew a lot of passion and also a lot of interest in this particular place. So when he was in the boarding school, he was just thinking about going to this place. So later on in the years is when now he left the boarding school. He felt that enough was enough. He left the boarding school and went to Switzerland. At that time, when he went to Switzerland, he was able to be employed in a particular in a particular shop and also a particular dealer where they used to import and also export pearls. And this pearls was a nice business because they usually sold the pearls to jewelry shops, and also they used to rebrand the pearls. And one thing about Hans Wilsford, what he noticed is that this particular business did not require you to put so much effort in it, because the way you buy it from the local markets is the way you'll sell it to the other markets, but these people were getting a lot of profit. So this is one of the things which intrigued him, and also he had to learn their ways and how they usually do this. And this is one of the things which later on in the years will help him also. So after working for this particular company at the age of 19, at that time, it was a very young age, but he was earning a lot of money for his age. So later on, he was invited by one of his friends to a particular company which was making pocket watches and was making watches. And he couldn't decline this offer because watches was one of his favorite things, and it was his passion. So that's when he decided to leave the company of pearl making to go to the watch company. Although the pay of the watch company wasn't so sufficient like the pearls, but he just needed to do it because this was all along his passion, and also it was his interest. So after he went over there in the watchmaking, he learned a lot of things, and he was a clerk for them, and also he was a English correspondent where you'll be able to talk with people English, because during that time it was Switzerland, people weren't talking Swiss, so they were mainly talking Swiss. So talking English, that was his work, and he excelled very good in his work. And also one of the job roles which also the watch company gave him, they gave him a particular job role where he'll be able to wind the watches and make the watches uh, just wind them and also make the watches very perfect before they are sold to the customers. So after 2 years in this particular company, this was 1900s when he started working for this particular watch company. So after 1900, he went back to Germany where he served some few years in the army, because in Germany it was a must for you to serve in the army if you are a youth or a German citizen. So he went back to Germany and served as a in the army. And after serving in the army in Germany, that's when now he relocated to England. And after relocating to England, he also found another job, which was a watchmaking company, and they were making pocket watches. And just remember the word which I'm emphasizing, which is the pocket watches, because there's a difference between pocket watches and also the wrist watches. Mainly, he went during that time, people were making pocket watches, not wrist watches. I'll tell you later on in the story and also the video why people were making pocket watches, not wrist watches. So he went in this particular company and he started his job very well. And this particular company was working even at a higher position than the other company which he was working in Switzerland. So when he worked as a salesperson, and his job responsibility was just to increase the sales of this particular company. And this is one of the things which he excelled in. So around after 2 years over there, he met a beautiful wife, and meeting this beautiful wife, they were able to marry in England. And after marrying, also the wife also brought some fortune with him, because one day when they were sitting with the brother-in-law, or and also which is the brother of the wife, they were discussing some things, and these things were the future and also the investments which they should make. And that's when now Hans Wilsford decided to tell the brother-in-law that he has a particular idea and also a particular investment, and also a it was a particular idea, just that he should invest in it so they can have so much returns, which the brother-in-law decided to agree on it. Although during that time it was 1905, and Hans Wilsford was around the age of 24 years. He was very young, but because of the passion which Hans Wilsford had, the brother-in-law couldn't refuse, and also had to just to accept the what the Hans Wilsford told him. So that's when now they decided to partner up to make a watch company which was called Wilsford and Davis Limited. And this now watch company now started making watches. And due to the experience of Hans Wilsford, he now started traveling and also looking for other people who will help him to make watches which are modern watches, and also what he saw the future of watches will be. And the future of watches will be wristwatches. During that time, people were making pocket watches, and the wristwatches were only worn by women. And also, one thing about the wristwatches, they were very small and they were very inaccurate, because when you look at the normal pocket watch, you'll see it is 12 p.m., but the wristwatch, you'll see it's a little bit not so precise. So the job of Hans Wilsford now was to design a particular wristwatch which will be so perfect that it will be the same as the pocket watches during that time. And one thing about Hans Wilsford, what he didn't like is the pocket watches, because the pocket watches were very unreliable sometimes, because you had to remove them so you can have a look at them. But the wristwatches were very efficient, because you just flip your hand and you see the time which it is. Other than the pocket watches, when you're doing something, it is very hard for you just to reach out for the pocket watches. So that's when now he decided to make a wristwatches which will also be favorable for men. And that's when now he started going to other countries and also assembling other components and also looking for the perfect wristwatch. And that's now during this year of 1905 to 1908, he succeeded in what he was doing, and he made the perfect wristwatches. And these wristwatches now began to be famous, and people started even adapting to it and leaving the other old methods of the pocket watches. That's now when, in 1908, after seeing that the future of the company was brilliant, he decided to change the company name to Rolex. And this name he came up after deciding that he wanted the company name to be just a simple name, and a name that will be able to fit inside the wristwatch, just where anybody can be able to be can anybody can be able to see it, and it will be very easily to see it. So that's when now he decided the company to be called Rolex. And now, after naming the company Rolex, the brand now started now shooting up. Many people now started searching for this company. And that time, what they usually did, they had a particular manufacturer which they had partnered up with, and he was in Germany. And this particular manufacturer, what he did, he used to export the particular the parts of the watches to England, and that's when in England they will be able to assemble it and make it to be a Rolex watch. But what they did, they made another office in Switzerland, where this office they'll be able to coordinate with the watch and also the dealership which they had partnered up with in Switzerland. So it was easy for them to communicate if they had a headquarter in Switzerland. So later on in the years, the World War One broke out around the 1910s to 1914s over there. And this, after the World War broke out, the most businesses were not so very good, but the business of Rolex now began to shoot up, and many people started buying the Rolex watch. The main reason of this is because the Rolex watch now are very easy to carry, and also it will help in the war, because many people will have a coordinated attack. When you say it is 12 p.m., we'll be meeting here today, you'll just meet here at 12 p.m. So the attack will be coordinated, and it will lead to better attacks by the people which were in war. So most of the people which were in war even wore the Rolex watches, the wristwatches, and left alone the pocket watches. So these watches were started being so famous even during the World War One. And that's when now in 1914, after the World War One passed, and also during that time there was a lot of hate for the Germany sides, and also the people who are associated to be Germans, and also companies of Germany. And remember, Hans Wilsford was a German person, and also this company which he had made was German, and many people knew that Hans Wilsford was a German. So the people and also the government during that time started hating the brand of Rolex, and also they imposed other taxes during that time. Those taxes were imposed, and they said that if anybody has a particular company in the United Kingdom or in London, they'll have to pay some 33% for any type of good they export outside of the country. So this idea and also this particular law which came about was very expensive for Rolex, and that's when now Rolex decided to relocate from London to England to go to Switzerland in Geneva. After going into Switzerland, Geneva, so that they can be able to run away from these taxes, and these taxes were not favorable for them. And remember also he was a German, so during that time the hate for German was over there in England because they didn't like anything which would associate them with the Germans. So he relocated the office to Switzerland, and that's now when he started his operation of the Rolex watches in Geneva. So during the other later years, there were so many fortunes because he won the many. So he won around two titles where the Rolex watch was the best in precision, and also the Rolex watch was the best watch which a person could wear because it was a luxury watch and also it was a wristwatch. And he won a particular title in Switzerland, and also won the same title in England of the watch which has the most precision. And this was the first person to win this particular award. So later on in the years, he was trying to make something and also another type of watch which will not be affected by dust, and then won't be affected by water, and won't be affected by air or any type of pressure. So later on in the year of 1926, he made a particular watch which he named it as Rolex Oyster, which this particular watch was waterproof, and you just submerge it into the water, it won't enter water no matter what type, or no matter how long it is in the water, it won't enter water. And this was the first watch that the whole world has ever seen, a watch which was waterproof. During that time, even the pocket watch wouldn't be afford to be waterproof. But now the wristwatch, which was impossible to make in the first place, was waterproof. So after making this particular watch in 1926, he waited for the perfect time where he will be able to tell the world that I've made a wristwatch which is waterproof. That's when now in 1927, he got a perfect opportunity where there was a particular woman which was swimming from England to France, and it was around 20 miles long distance. And this woman, now what Hans Wilsford did, he told the woman to wear the watch around the neck when she'll be swimming to the other shore of the front side. So when the woman wore the watch on the neck, she was able to swim 4/5 of that particular journey. And during that time, there was a lot of cold, and also the water was not favorable for her. But she has ever done it before. But during this time, she wasn't able to do it. She just swam 4/5 of the whole journey. And after swimming, she was removed out of the water because of it was so much cold, and also she was in a position where she was freezing to death. So what they did, they removed her, but on her chest they saw that it was a Rolex watch. Now that's when now people were began to look for this watch which she was wearing, because the publicity now shot up because this Rolex watch was worn by a swimmer, and this swimmer was able to swim from a particular distance to another distance, and the watch was not even affected a little bit. That's now when people started knowing about the Rolex watch and started asking for the Rolex watch and wanted to buy it. Later on in the years, he was able now to advertise the Rolex watch. He did some ingenuity and also some clever ways where he was able to advertise the Rolex watch inside a fishbowl, and this fishbowl, there were fishes inside. So in many of the stores of the Rolex watches, they were having a fishbowl, and also the Rolex watch was inside to show people that it was completely waterproof. And this when now people started buying the Rolex watch, and it started becoming famous. And also he did some other famous he asked other famous people to take watches with this particular to take pictures with this particular watch, and that's how now it started to become famous. So later on in the years of 1944, over there in the World War One, things were not very well for him. That's when now his wife died, and after the wife dying, he was very sad, and that's when now he decided to make a foundation called Wilsford Foundation, and this foundation was to help the vulnerable and also to help the poor people, and also it was just a foundation. And after making this particular foundation, called the Wilsford Foundation, later on in the years in 1960, when he succumbed to his death, it's when now he decided to put all the shares to this particular foundation. And in our Rolex watch, there is the people, or the Rolex company doesn't pay any tax. Doesn't The Rolex company cannot be sold to anyone because it's headed by a foundation. So he helped also the people of the foundation, and also he helped the foundation a lot. So later on in the years, that's when now Rolex started releasing other watch brands like the Submariner, and also the Rolex company now started producing other Rolexes, which were 904L steel, and this is the best steel, the most durable, and also it cannot be affected by any type of corrosion. It cannot even corrode. So that's the story of Hans Wilsford, the maker, and also the story of Rolex watch. Later on, he died in the year of 1960 just through normal deaths. And after that, it's when now Rolex watch started becoming a brand which was a luxury brand, and also it targeted the rich people and also the people which could afford the brand, because it did a lot of investment in that particular watch. So that's the story of Rolex watch, and I hope you liked it. Please give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.